Thanks for having me and all this opportunity to interview not just you, but everybody who's going to be speaking here today at SG60 Edition, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I mean, this is such a nice, fun, cozy setting. It's
right.
right at the heart of Orchard Road, so we're really excited to host you in
Oh,
Singapore.
thank you. I think it's quite interesting that this edition is called SG60. Singapore celebrating 60 years. I was just wondering for you, like what does this particular moment mean for you as having come from
I think
Singapore?
I think Singapore has come a long way, and that we've gone from third world to first world in such a short amount of time. And I think if anything, SG60 sort of really reminds us of what the spirit of innovation and the can-do spirit can do.
Right.
I think we have a sense of strength and resilience and just being able to rise above.
Right.
I think just look at what we've been able to build in Singapore in such a short amount of time. I think for us, in Smobler, because we are headquartered in Singapore. I'm still proudly Singaporean. I think what I love to capture is the fact that we want to celebrate our culture. And I think you can also see from our backdrop, like really celebrating our culture and our heritage, but really at the cusp of, all these technological changes, we're really looking forward to the next 60. And so, I mean, for me too, Nova is really a celebration of where culture meets code, where tradition meets innovation, where industry meets innovation. And so we're trying to bring all of these movements in time together. So we're really excited to be able to do this Nova 60 edition right here.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that intersection between culture and technology and how that's evolved. And I think I guess a word to sum it up is really storytelling and being able to do that. What does that word mean to you in particular?
So many things. And first off, I don't know if you even know my background, but my background is that I'm actually a theatre director.
Right,
so I think
right.
storytelling is so close to my heart. And I think fundamentally, all nations need a narrative. If you look at it from a macro perspective, right? All nations need a narrative. So like for us in Singapore, we said like we're a fishing village. We had Sang Nila Utama discover us, and then he discovered a lion with a fishtail, and so you have the story of like a merlion. While it may seem like a fictitious story, I think what is important is that every culture and society needs storytelling. Why? Because it anchors us, it gives us a sense of roots, it gives us a sense of shared, common histories and stories. I mean, that's what we tell our families as well. If you think about it, mothers would tell, stories to their children at night, bedtime stories. Why do we tell stories? Because it's also how we impart our values, it's how we impart tradition, it's how we impart our views and perspectives of the world. And so storytelling is what really gels societies together. And then fast forward to me being a theatre professional, right? I think storytelling really is an ability to drive the entire team towards a shared common vision. Especially if you think about the theatre, it's it's very ephemeral. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. And yet you get people to basically move to the sound of a single drum, drawing from different perspectives and yet sharing the same vision. And that is what I take to being a leader as well, right? Because oftentimes what you need to do is sort of to even put like an event together, put an entire a team together. It really is about getting people to understand a shared vision, a shared mission, and yet celebrating all the diversities and nuances and color that make up a great team, and yet being able to make reality happen from that one shared common vision. So yes, storytelling is the invisible glue that I think holds people's, societies, communities together.
Right. I think it's a day one foundation, definitely for any organization or any effort, whether it's like a theater production or a large company.
So even big corporations, right? They'll have vision, mission. They'll go for retreats, right? Why? Because we fundamentally want to be able to tell the same story. But you're absolutely right. So I think it's a great place to start. Like I think every CEO needs to be a great storyteller.
Yeah, and how have you seen as a leader yourself? How have you seen the modes of storytelling evolve for leaders? Like, how have you seen that change over the years?
I think that's such an interesting question. I think back in the day, you'd have it very top down, right? It's institutional. This is the big narrative that we want everyone to follow. But I think increasingly, especially when we're in a emerging tech, we're an AI, blockchain, technology first company, we see that today's narratives are really being co-created. Folks don't like to be top to or top down to. They really love the idea of co-creating, which also makes sense for us as a segue why we are doing gamification and blockchain, because it encourages the creator economy. But if we leave that in the parking lot for a while, I think what it really is that today people want a sense of ownership in the storytelling. It's really about co-creation. Just look at what social media is. The younger generation today want to feel like they have a part to play in the storytelling. We see the rise of influencers, right? Even if you look at traditional narratives being broken down, right? Back then, you'd have the big industries or big film industries or Hollywood, for example. But even today, all of these big machineries and industries are being broken down because today, I mean, just right behind us, we have folks, taking content right from their mobile devices, right? So I think today,
Even what we're doing now.
Exactly. Back in the day, if you wanted to do this is a multi-million-dollar production, right? It'd be shot on film, right? With like a 50,000 pax crew, which we do have. But today, it's like you can just hang on to your mobile device, and everyone is a co-creator. So, but that in itself is a challenge as well, because when you have multiple perspectives and multiple stories, then I think the challenge for a leader is to unite these stories.
Right.
It's not just the storytelling or what is the narrative that is crucial, but how do you begin to suture a cogent narrative when everyone has a voice and everyone has a story, and you want to celebrate that and yet be able to tell a cogent narrative, because otherwise you'd have the breakdown of trust, which is also a crisis that we see happening today. So I think the role of a leader today is incredibly challenging. I mean, you have to be a master storyteller and also be the great cheerleader that brings the entire team together.
Yeah, I really like that concept of the leader having to suture and kind of unite like the different threads of different stories being told within the organization to something that unifies everybody. How are you seeing technology help leaders in that regard?
Yeah, so let's talk about like the boons, right? The boons of it is definitely the fact that it makes it more accessible, it makes it quicker. Things are happening at the speed of light, literally, right? You see now AI really helping in storytelling. You see us being able to tell narratives quicker, faster, right in front of you. 24-hour news, right? So I think all of these things has really expedited storytelling and us getting news right here, right now on our fingertips. But the bane of it is then you begin to see the rise of like counter narratives or counterfeit narratives, or the ability to have fake news. I'm sure you hear this a lot, so I'm not going to belabor the point. You're going to see the rise of folks, suturing distrust through the use of powerful narratives. I mean, we have lots of chatbots. I mean, like I said, there's always like flip sides to the coin. And I think with all of these powers that we now have, with technology being able to be a great storyteller, we have to deal with all the fallouts and all the banes of that technology.
Right. And I wanted to go back to that point which you parked earlier about the creator economy and like what drew your interest to this particular area, and how does it go back to your whole idea of hopefully reaping the bane of of faster
Or the boons. Reaping the boons.
boons. Sorry, reaping the boons, not the bane. Yeah, the boons of these new technologies for storytelling.
I think let's take it back a little bit in time. That I grew up in an era where you had institutional narratives, right? So I was really thankful to have been given an ability to have a platform to either be part of publishing, to read the news, to be institutional media. But back then you had to be like the chosen few, right? If you think about it, in fact, growing up, like as an Asian female, you probably felt kind of like unwanted or ugly or not part of the norm, because everyone that you see in Hollywood is like blonde, blue-eyed and tall, and did not even reflect our Asian culture. But that was how dominant media was back then, right? And of course, we've seen an evolution. There's greater diversity and inclusion. In fact, Netflix recently released a report to say that they have predominantly more multicultural content, right, than heteronormative white content, right? So it's already a deviation from that. So the whole idea was really to empower generations, because when I grew up, I didn't see a lot of diversity. I mean, all the books that I read growing up, it's like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right? Where was the Asian girl, right? I remember my first book that was represented, and that's one of the reasons why I write books, is because I read The Woman Warrior or Hua Mulan. That was the first book that had an Asian character and dominant culture, right? So I think I had the privilege and ability back then to go hunt down all of these writers, collaborators, content creators, and deliberately collaborate with them, and then begin to tell stories and create platforms to do that. And that then, of course, inspired me to take that into my technology company when I established Smobler, to recognize that we need diverse content. And now the technology enables that, empowers everyone to be a content creator. And so that was literally what got me interested, because whoever had media back then, it was the have it and the have nots, right? And so I really wanted to be able to engender, empower, and make storytelling more accessible to all. And this is, I think, where we are today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I think like technology has really, sort of flattened the landscape and made things a lot more accessible.
Democratized.
Yeah,
democratize the access to communication and creation.
Yeah, exactly. And How do you see this moving forward in the next? You talked about where it is today. How do you see it
Yeah,
moving
I
forward?
think increasingly it's going to be a very complicated, nuanced landscape. I think now, of course, you have generative AI coming into play, right? So, like I said, with every boon, there's always a bane, right? With more and more great content being able to be created faster, cheaper, better. We also have the bane of having to deal with fallouts, fake news, right? And I think increasingly what we need is more media literacy, more nuance. I think there really has to be a greater emphasis on character, on truth and honesty, and that really is, I think, the challenge of the 21st century and technology these days, because these lines of what reality and fiction is becoming increasingly blurred. I
Right.
mean, and it's like if in
Do you have your own mindset on how to kind of sift through, or something that you practice?
I think for me, because of my education background, I think a lot of it is education, education, education. I think it's a lot of awareness. It's a lot of being able to be open to perspectives and listening to all sides. I think that often for me as a CEO, as a founder, as a content creator myself, I think the key is to always have an open mind, but I think always have a strong moral compass, to not be fixed on one way of doing things. But I think having that strong sense of character and values is incredibly important in this very sort of fractured landscape.
Right. On that note, do you have any piece of advice for other CEOs out there who are also trying to figure out how they can improve their storytelling, especially within their organization?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think for most CEOs, I think it is true. I think increasingly, interpersonal skills, communication skills, storytelling skills is really important, right? I think most times we often think that the balance sheet is really important. Of course, it still is, right? All of these matrices are important, but I think increasingly, because of the power of technology and the fact that everyone now wields that power, I think it's so important that CEOs know how to be cheerleader. They know how to be a great storyteller. They must also know how to be able to put themselves out there and lead by example. And I think there's something to be said when the CEO or the leader walks the talk.
Right.
I think there is so much more power in authentic communication, and people want that, especially as we begin to see more and more AI and generative technology. People do want,
Those
I
genuine
still want to believe
human
like,
interaction.
these
Yeah.
human interactions are going to be that much more.
On that note, we have a fun segment here. Yeah. We're gonna just pick out a question. We'll do two of these.
Two?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. What is the most memorable piece of advice received? This one I need to credit one of my professors, KK Seat. He was a professor and he's always reminded me that what people do to me is their karma and how I respond is mine. So which always reminded me, again, going back to, leading with character and honesty and integrity. I think that's really important, to always be mindful of how we interpolate with other people.
Right. It's not what happens to you; it's how you respond to it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
all right. Another one.
More? Put this back?
Yeah, I can put
Right.
it.
All right, one more.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, the last time failure has helped you as a leader. Oh my goodness, all the time. As a leader, I think was the first thing you have to admit is that you're going to fail every single time.
What was the latest one or the most
The latest
impactful
one I
one?
would say was when I founded Smobler. It was meant to be a project over COVID. I had no idea that we would get funded and to be en route to being bigger. So at the start, the founding team was really assembled to sort of help a team of individuals who had lost their jobs, right? And so one of the things that I had to quickly learn was that not every individual is meant to be startup material. And I had put up with that for far longer. So I think one of the things that leaders need to be able to color on is that if it is the wrong fit, it is the wrong fit. If there are red flags, to have the courage and tenacity to speak up and deal with conflict early.
Yeah.
Because I knew in my head what had to be done, but in my heart, I had let it sort of seep for a little bit too long. And so again, it's one of the, I think, best advice that I'll give a leader is that sometimes you need to be courageous and do the right thing, especially when it's difficult.
Inevitable tough decisions.
Yes,
Part of the job.
Yes.
On that note,
Exactly.
thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you so
Loretta,
much
for
for
joining
having
us.
me. I hope that was useful.
Do you want to say something? Yeah, you could always like.
Because I would like to be able to share.
Sure,
We
yeah.
went straight into storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you can share a little bit about.
So Smobler is a digital-first company. So we create games for education and culture. We also create AI, largely for compliance, and we also create blockchain for trust and transparency, largely in the supply chain arena. So basically, what we want to do is Smobler uses technology for good, and we work with all our partners to create solutions that really engender our belief that technology must do good.
Right. Yeah. No, quite interesting. Very different kind of industries and use cases.
Yeah, so
Across
basically, I think
education,
the thing
supply
about this
chain,
is
compliance.
so it's education, food security,
Yeah.
and supply chain for trust and traceability.
Okay. Did you start out with those particular use cases in mind, or sort
No,
of
it actually
discovered it
really
along the
started
way?
with it actually really started with games for education because I'm an educator at heart. And then as I began to understand the blockchain industry better, I began to realize that it's really very good for trust and traceability. And that's how, because Singapore is situated in a maritime trade hub, I decided that I wanted to be able to disrupt like maritime trade. And so we found our partners in Liston Labs and the Sui blockchain to be able to co-create a maritime bunker product with them. And then for the food product, it really came about because, I mean, food is essential.
Yeah.
That food is not just about purely a commercial issue, but food security is national security.
Yeah.
And so actually the state of Hawaii had given me this idea to say we want to be able to increase food production in Hawaii. And in order to do so, we realized that we needed to increase food entrepreneurship in the space. But back then, there were a lot of regulatory hurdles for entrepreneurs to get into the food space. And so we decided to create an AI platform that helps food entrepreneurs in the regulations and compliance. And so now this has actually become a product that we're actively growing. And we want to turn that into a commercial product as well.
Yeah.
So
So
very much.
you build these technologies in-house, or do you also partner with, like, look for existing kind of startups or founders that are working on these?
So for the games and the AI solution is all in-house.
Yeah.
Obviously, the blockchain solution, we work with a blockchain partner, which is Sui and Mr. Labs.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
No, thanks for sharing that.
Well, thank you so much, Paulo.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank you.
having you.